Hello, I was trying to call to ask some questions regarding a recent research article that your team had published. It was in regard to adolescent treatment for gender diverse youth. I wanted to hopefully speak and hope to talk to you soon. Thank you. Hey America. Hey all, my name is Bree Taylor. I am, as some of you know, the Executive Director of Trans Unity Coalition. Welcome to 2026. Thank you so much for surviving. I think we all had a hell of a year, and that's gotta be the wildest understatement of all time. Now, some of you might have been wondering, why haven't we been putting out a ton of videos in the past? And I really wanted just to say that video production takes a bit of time. I was thinking that for 2026, it might be a little bit easier to do something a little bit more simple, but not any less informative. I kind of thought it'd be a nice way just to kind of walk and talk and then be able to present the information. I'm thinking that at least for the time being, that might be the best way to kind of go about these videos. The trans community absolutely needs to get information, whether that be through us, whether that be through our partners. The more out there, the more that we start to reclaim that narrative. What is that? We had a new article that came out. This comes from the Journal of Pediatrics. In a splash of good news, it's actually pretty supportive of gender-affirming care for youth. The article's name is Changes in Suicidality Among Transgender Adolescents Following Hormone Therapy, an Extended Study. And the link to this study will be posted below. I would definitely say check it out. If you aren't of an academic background, please still give it a read, at least the core summary and understanding that there is still gender-affirming care-related research out there. Now, why do I feel it's important enough to mention this study? Well, the thing is, it is now 2026. And one of the most common things I heard in 2025 is, where's the data? Where's the research? We saw a lot of pseudoscience that was coming out that downplayed the seriousness of the effectiveness of these treatments, or even just widespread intimidation towards those who are voicing out to say, I'm a researcher, I want to get an objective measure of how effective these treatments are, as well as how safe they are. The data shows a significant drop in suicidality among adolescents who are receiving hormonal treatment. I reached out to the various authors of the study, and I was able to get a little bit of information from them directly and ask the questions about what their perspective is on the importance of research like this and why they felt that they wanted to conduct it. And right now I have the true honor of speaking with Dr. Luke Allen, a PA accredited PhD of counseling psychology and practicing psychologist based out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And I believe you also practice in multiple states, if I recall correctly.
Right. Licensed in California, Oregon, and then there's this thing psychologists have that let us practice in like 40 plus other states. So there's really only a small handful of states that I can't work into.
I believe you were lead author and there were 3 other authors as well on your team for this.
Yep, that's right.
Have you or perhaps colleagues of yours directly felt any changes over the recent years as researchers? Have new challenges obstructed your progress?
Well, my readers might not necessarily know about this study. And sort of the first one that came before in 2019 was this is a completely unfunded study. It was like basically, hours and hours and weeks and months and basically a year of like weekends and evenings working on it. So got around the whole not being impacted by the funding issue because it was didn't seek it in the first place, and just I happened to be in the place where I had access to the data because I basically, this is a replication study. So this study at least wasn't really directly impacted by that. I do have colleagues who have, like, similar to ones maybe you mentioned, where like their funding was taken. What's unique about this one is this is really a like treatment as usual. What do outcomes really look like in like real world clinical practice? And so in that way, it was like largely from non-full-time researchers, but it really was like more of like a clinician scientist driven paper versus like purely funding. So I got to kind of like sidestep the funding issue in the first place, since it's more like a labor of love, I suppose. If this was like a funded research project, which I guess could still possibly be in the future, I think it would have been a much more like larger. If we had the time and resources and money to pay for the people to extract it and clean it, I think it could have been just like a much more detailed study than it is already. But it's kind of like balancing kind of like real world practicalities with like getting really hard to get data out.
Do you feel any detectable patterns exist in what you, the researcher, are seeing? How would you interpret these results for the layperson who may be less familiar with methodology, terminology, or the underlying importance?
Most things in medicine and like health science, like health research is incredibly hard. There's so many variables. You have to have like longitudinal, like, uh, cohorts and like the funding and resources to do it. Like it's completely fair to like be skeptical for whatever, intervention. The 2019 study had an example of like 47 or 43 patients had like a large effect size, but with early studies, like sample sizes are so small, there's a lot of variability, things can be like overinflated. But what's noteworthy about this one is it's essentially a replication study, 10 times the sample size, and we see the exact same thing. And like the most conservative way, if you want to describe the pattern of results, is what we see from the 2019 study, from my study, and kind of like from all the other studies that exist. The general pattern is for adolescents, for youth, people who receive hormone therapy, gender-affirming care, if suicidality was present, at baseline, when they come back to care later on, it's really rare for suicidality to get worse. It's really rare for there to be new suicide attempts. And what we see is at follow-up, people are just, have less suicidality. It was really just no way getting around that people were doing better off afterwards.
What do you feel still remains to be seen, if anything, or what do you feel would be really great to explore from where the data currently stands?
So the 2019 study, the average follow-up for that one was about a year. For this one, the average follow-up roughly around the 2-year mark. From my understanding, a lot of the, if we want to call it retransitioning or detransitioning or just like stopping hormonal intervention, sometimes that seems like that happens much later after transitioning. So like what we're missing is just like longer studies, which is kind of like just the time hasn't elapsed for that to happen. So I think that's sort of one of the missing pieces. And there's other researchers that like are actively working on that. I'm not sure how they've been impacted from the current funding. So those things are in the works. It's just, it takes a really long time since legislative bans happened in Missouri and Kansas. Like it just like illegal um, to serve new patients, So I think that impacted the data for that reason.
Can you elaborate on any limitations from this current study? And with respect to those limitations, the remaining usefulness of this particular piece of research?
Yeah, good question. So if the goals are to say like, how do people look after they receive like the standard of care? Like, are they doing better than they were at baseline? Uh, my study can answer that and does answer that. If there's like a different hypothetical question, well, how would these children look? How would these youth, adolescents, young adults look if they received no treatment? Like, I guess that might be a limitation because we don't have that hypothetical group. So if someone was like really skeptical or playing devil's advocate, they'd be like, "Whoa, we don't know. Maybe the youth would have been even better off had they not received the treatment." So like our study can't answer that question, but yeah, the strongest claim is when youth come in for care, it seems like they experience less suicidality. And if they had attempted suicide in the past, after care, it's rare that they do it again. There's not really any way to undermine that like pure descriptive claim.
Parents do genuinely want what is best for their children. What would you like these parents or guardians to know regarding the objectives of your study?
So like in one lens, this study could conceptualize or think of as sort of like a safety study. It's one thing if something helps, something makes you feel better, like, but it's another thing if you do a study and people have this like horrible outcome. And so in that sense, like this study like sort of definitively shows, at least within our population within this time frame, uh, people aren't experiencing like increased suicidality. And so in that sense, it's like, oh, like at least, at least it seems relatively safe and it's not going to make people more suicidal. What I want parents to know, or I guess more the lay public know, most people in the study, like of the 432, the vast majority, no suicidality. We're doing fine, good relationships, happy, enjoyable lives, just like your average, adolescent and young adult. And so like being trans or non-binary isn't like so tied to like, oh, I'm in distress all the time. Like No, most people are doing fine. And there's in evidence-based medicine, the evidence can never tell you what to do. Like there's a difference between does something work and does it work for you? And like if hormones are going to be right for a youth or their family, that really depends upon like the specific values of that patient. I guess the takeaway would be it's really has to be coming from the patient, be coming from the family about what feels right for them. And that's going to be like a conversation or conversations that they have with their individual providers. And so there might not be any really one size fit all.
Is there anything else you would like people to know? And that could be anyone who may benefit or learn from your words. Is there anything that you would like them to know now that the study has been published and is available for public viewing?
I do my best to try and break down the study in more like layperson language on my website, and I answer some frequently asked questions there. There is this translation issue in the sciences where like reporters and journalists report on the science, and even if they're well-intentioned, nuance and technicalities get lost in it. And so if there is something that I want to share, it'll probably be on my website somewhere.
Now, there's also another reason why I'm mentioning this study, and that's because, hey, again, it's 2026 now, and that means a whole new year of advocacy and direct engagement, meeting with lawmakers, and really telling them what's what. Studies like these become talking points, and when you have a really good talking point, there's a lot that you can do to capitalize on it, and that's the kind of thing that really shows the true response of a community, when we're all here for each other and we're all able to work together to find really unique solutions for what is a really terrible problem. Now, those of you out there who are taking these issues seriously, I think you'll already know that this is pretty much common sense for those who will actively tell you that, yes, I received hormonal care when I was younger and it saved my life. And it's really sad that that's the current state of the country, that we're so divided, that we're not able to meet in the middle and have civil, lengthy, and adult level discussions about these issues, because these matter to people. There's about 2 to 3 million American transgender citizens. That's not nothing. It is definitely up to the American public to make an informed decision about these issues, but what needs to happen is that these decisions have to be informed. When we see studies come out like this that clearly show what a whole community has been saying, people need to really listen to these things, because at the end of the day, what we're facing is risking people's quality of lives, if not their entire life directly. And that is all I have for right now. If you feel like this video is informational or helpful, please share it. We definitely need the additional reach, but we cannot do it without your support. Thank you so much in 2025 for being there every step of the way with us. We cannot do this without you, and we will be there fighting for you until the end. Thank you so much.